We are back live here on our big broadcast. And we are going to go to the Bunny. It is the Bunny Show. I don't know if you want to call it the Bunny Show. I don't know what you want to refer to this show as. But we are going to ring the group here on the old Skip Skype, the old Skype-a-rooney. And we are going to go to the Bunny, hopefully. And we also have our guest who is going to join us as well. I don't know how this is going to go, so we're going to figure it out. And we will see what happens here. I think we've got our guest. Can you hear me, my friend?
Hey, how you doing?
Pretty good, actually. We are waiting on the Bunny to join us as well. After all, this is her show. And we've got a great guest with us today. He joins us live here on our big broadcast. So tell me a little bit about your background, my friend.
What's going on? I'm Jeremy from Winter Nights here, Brooklyn, New York. We play some death metal. We drink a lot. We smoke a lot. We got a new album that came out.
That's awesome. So you guys do a lot of cool stuff. Your latest track, Sky Burial. Tell us a little bit about Sky Burial.
Well, I like to venture into death, obviously, hence death metal. And Sky Burial is sort of transference of consciousness, so to speak. So sort of what happens when you die, in between dying, and what happens afterwards. And there's in Tibet, there are funerals at the top of the mountains, and the vultures come down and eat your corpse. Apparently it brings
Wow.
the spirit to the sky. That's where I got the idea for the whole thing. So
Holy smokes. That is that is quite the deal. Good Lord, that is quite the quite the vision, I guess. You know.
it's actually like a super ritual. Like people, it's been going on for like hundreds of thousands of years, I suppose. And it's pretty like, it's like, the monks are there while the vultures are desecrating the body, hundreds of vultures, and the monks are there praying. And it's kind of like this. It's like what I want in my funeral. So maybe a little more drinking involved. Monks don't drink, so.
That's great. So, Sky Burial, that is the latest from Winter Nights, and they join us today here on our big program. Coast to coast and border to border on iHeartRadio today, also Rock Music Hub, and we have got a great guest with us today. Winter Nights is, of course, a four-piece metal band. They are from Brooklyn, New York. So tell me a little bit about the music scene out there in Brooklyn, New York.
Brooklyn itself is kind of so-so, but New York City in general is pretty decent. We have a lot of metal bands. So I used to think when I was, a teenager playing metal that there's only a couple bands, but then once you start playing in the scene, you play in shows with other bands, you realize on one night you could have 5-6 metal shows in different boroughs, and it's like an hour to get to each one. So it's actually pretty lively, I want to say, especially in New York City.
That's great.
In my head, I could probably name like 30 local bands that I either see or been friends with or played shows with. And that's just like local stuff. There's Jersey, there's PA that come into the town as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think that would be a tremendous experience there to have all those musicians, and you just go from place to place and all that. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely like decent. I mean, obviously, we're living in a different era now with all this stuff, so to speak, that goes on. So shows are closing and opening, closing and opening. But
yeah,
we've gotten through it. You know, there's a couple of good shows that happened since May when things opened up, and now it's probably going to close up again thanks to this government. But yeah.
So you guys have been doing this Winter Nights project for a little bit. Tell me about how this thing got together. How you guys got all together as a group.
So my brother is the lead guitarist. His name is Efren, and it's basically been me and him since 2006 or whatever, playing music in general. And it was about 2007. It was a New Year's Eve, and we obviously were getting tanked, and it was like right before the ball dropped or somewhere around there. I don't know. We don't ever remember everything past 11 p.m. But it was a couple of me, my brother, and a couple of friends and childhood friends. And at the time, my brother, we're doing like, New Year's Eve wishes, whatever. We're fucking wasted, so we don't know what the hell we're talking about. But he has one. He says, "My New Year's Eve wish is to make a band in 2007," and somehow somebody remembered it. And like 2 months later, the drummer, who's one of my best friends from our childhood, just booked the studio and said, "We're going to the studio." So we're making a band, and I'm just like, I barely know. We're still in that. We know covers. I've been playing it for a long time at that point, but I know covers, Slayer, Testament, bullshit. I don't know nothing about originals and whatever. But so we get to the studio. We played that first time. We had probably had like 24 beers, and ever since then we've just been trying to make some sort of music. Make
That's
some noise
great.
over the years.
That's great. That is fantastic. It is Winter Nights. They're with us today here on a broadcast. So this album that we're talking about today was recorded in New Jersey, of all places. Tell us about the recording this album at Backroom Studio and Brady Street Recordings in New Jersey.
Well, we did. It's funny that you said Jersey the way you did, because we usually record in Brooklyn or somewhere in the city, but we decided to take a budget cut because it's coming out to a lot of money going to these studios that the Foo Fighters recorded that and all this kind of bullshit. So we're like, okay, we're gonna take a step out and check out the prices in Jersey and in PA or whatever. So it turns out our drummer who came in 2 years ago recorded some solo stuff with a friend of his, his name is Mikhail, and he does engineering at this studio. And we're like, okay, it's gonna be a small basement in Jersey, cool, whatever. It wasn't that much money. It was a quarter of what we were paying before. So fine, we book it. We're like, we're ready. We get there, and the studio is maybe like 5 times bigger than the one we were recording at. It's a fucking like warehouse. There's like rehearsal spaces, there's loungers, there's like a whole room to rehearse before you record with stage and lighting. We're like, wow, this is fucking amazing. And then I'm looking at the wall, and it's like the studio that Dillinger Escape Plan built. And I'm like, okay, I guess it's a real fucking studio now. So they had accredited stuff on there. Dillinger Escape Plan, a bunch of other people who I don't know that type of music that well, so I can't say who was there, but
yeah.
Mikhail was great. He was probably the best engineer I've ever worked with. He called us on our bullshit when we were wrong with, certain things about leveling notes and stuff. And he also helped us along the way. He had ideas. So it's kind of like he was almost a producer at the same time. And it was interesting because we never really had that. We usually have a guy who just sits there and is like, "You're ready?" Presses the button.
You're ready.
Presses the button, and then like okay, we take this thing that the guy just pressed the button on and we give it to the mix guy, and the mix guy's like, "Yeah, I got a lot of work to fucking do now." But this time our mixing guy was like, "This is great." Like the Mikhail, our engineer, pretty much did most of the stuff, the leveling stuff along the way, So it was amazing. Like this is a different recording experience in Jersey. So.
That's great. That's great. I think that's awesome. I always like to tell everybody that, I always like to refer to New Jersey as a whole nother country, because I've been to New Jersey once, and I tried to order me and my photographer tried to order a bagel, and I think if he would have just went ahead and just ordered the bagels, we wouldn't have had the problems that we had. But he had to make a big frickin' deal about the fact that I'm originally from Kansas, And all of a sudden, the cashier turns into Andrew Dice Clay, and she's like, "So what do you have?" And I'm like, "If you just would have said, hey, me and my friend here would like a couple bagels," she would have rang it up, got us our bagels, and got out of there. But we have got Winter Nights with us today. They join us live here in our broadcast. So, what's been the feedback on your collection of music here?
People have sort of been amazed that, is this you? Because I guess we've changed in a way. We, first off, like I said, we have a new drummer with James, and the dynamic has changed in the band, as it always does with a new drummer. You always have this new vibe and new ideas, and it's definitely enhanced the music in speed and dexterity, but also his background is like, most of our drummers have been pretty straightforward. Either they like Amon Amarth, death metal, or they like Testament, heavy metal, or like just Metallica, stuff like that. Like some new age stuff. James is more like, I would say, eclectic. He's into more bands that you don't really know. Like half the time he plays bands in the car, and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you're playing, but it actually sounds pretty good.
That's
it's
right.
Like atmospheric black metal, post-depressive death metal, and like some weird atmospheric rock, and like a lot of stuff where it's like you take a step back and you actually listen to the music, and that may have helped us out a little bit with this album, because there's like if you hear the album straight through, for anybody who listens to it, you can understand that the beginning sort of is like a little bit of a slow drive, and then you'll see it starts. The second song will give you a little bit more pace, and the third is just like straight up like a fucking machine gun, and the last one just all over the place. And we did that way because we wanted to sort of get the this is only an EP, so we wanted to get the idea that the next album, this is what to expect, like this intensity, And the feedback has been basically, wow, in a way, because our last album, I would say, because I'm my own worst critic, was dull in my opinion, the one from 2020. This one, I believe we've shown some part of what we truly can do, and we have a keyboardist who guest starred on there from Finland, Marko, and he's from some of my favorite bands that I love, like Kalma and Poison Black from back in Finland. And they're gone now, but Kalma's still around, but he's not with them. But glad to have him on there. And then we got to mix the album with Ati, who's another guy from Finland, keeping it Finnish, and he's worked with bands such as Sentence, which is one of my favorite bands in the world, and a bunch of other bands like Kalma and then Nightwish, and all these big bands from Scandinavia. So I feel like this album may be definitely the best thing we've ever done. I'll say that 100%. But also I believe that people are showing that maybe this band has some potential somewhere along the line, which I'm hoping. Who knows?
That's great. Well, you've got to you've got to kind of test the waters, I guess, if you want to say that.
True.
That's great.
Interestingly enough, this album was made during the pandemic, so it was a time where it's just us in the studio, and the whole of New York City is desolate, quiet streets, quiet studio. We were the only band in the studio at the time. We were the only band brave enough to go to the studio and not catch the virus, so to speak. And we just were creating hours and hours of creating. No shows for a year and a half, and we were just there creating this album.
Yes.
Going to record it, and we're like, fuck it, like, we don't give a shit. Like, we go to the house, to the car, to the studio, and we got to do what we got to do. We can't just sit home and kill ourselves, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you, you guys have got quite the deal here. So I am really glad that we were able to get you guys on today and chatting about your music. We're going to play some of your music, and thanks for joining us today. Thanks for coming on.
Of course, thank you, brother.
Definitely. Well, we're going to go play some of your music, and thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, man. There he goes. That is Winter Nights, and now here it is on our big program.